Gavin Harris, a 16-year-old sophomore, sat on the edge of his bed, staring out of the window at the world he felt disconnected from. Outside, the sun painted the sky in warm hues, but inside, Gavin was shrouded in shadows. Raised in a strict religious household, his parents' unwavering beliefs made it clear that being anything but straight was a sin. He had felt different for as long as he could remember, grappling with feelings he couldn't voice, especially when everyone around him slipped easily into expected roles. At St. Benedict's Prep, an all-boys school, he was no stranger to loneliness. Gavin's awkwardness, coupled with an unfortunate combination of acne and a poor sense of style, made him a target for ridicule. He had few friends, and even those connections felt tenuous. Often, he withdrew into himself, finding solace in books, art, and fleeting moments of joy in a world obscured from the boys who taunted him. Everything changed when John Stevens, the once merciless bully who found pleasure in making Gavin's life miserable, started to act differently. John had always played the confident jock, popular among his peers. When John's attitude shifted from mocking to unexpectedly kind, it confused Gavin. "Hey," John said one day, leaning against the lockers with a casual smirk. "Want to grab some lunch together?" Gavin hesitated, but instead of rejecting John, he allowed himself to hope. Perhaps his uncertain feelings were unwarranted. Maybe this was the friendship he longed for. Little did Gavin know, John intended to exploit their relationship for a dare from his friends to befriend Gavin for $200. He easily put on an act. Being charming was second nature to him. As their friendship blossomed, Gavin felt relief, eager to share his thoughts with someone. He began to trust John, revealing pieces of himself that he had hidden, including the secret that weighed heavily in his heart. "I think I'm gay," he said one evening in a quiet corner of the park, voice barely above a whisper. To Gavin's surprise, John nodded thoughtfully, his face an unsettling mask of empathy. "Wow, man, that's really brave of you. I promise not to tell anyone. You can trust me." Gavin felt a rush of gratitude, believing he had finally let down his guard. However, John was devising the ultimate act of betrayal. One fateful night, John texted Gavin, asking him to meet under the old bridge, their secret hideout. "I have a surprise for you. Just trust me." John typed, opaque intentions veiling the darkness ahead. Eager yet nervous, Gavin agreed. When Gavin arrived, anticipation gnawed at him. "You made it!" John exclaimed, illuminated by the streetlight. Gavin's instincts screamed that something wasn't right. Before Gavin could voice his concerns, John blindfolded him. "I don't want you to spoil the surprise." Gavin chuckled nervously but allowed himself to play along. The playful facade quickly crumbled. Suddenly, Gavin felt cords wrapped around his wrists. Panic surged through him. "John, what are you doing? This isn't funny." He struggled against the binding, shadows deepening in his fear. "Relax. Just a game," John said, laughter echoing around him. "You really thought I could ever be friends with you?" John's voice now held venom. Tears streamed down Gavin's cheeks when John's friends revealed themselves, all armed with laughter and cruelty. "Look, everyone, the homo. Let's have some fun," one jeered. Gavin's blindfold was ripped away, glaring light invading his eyes, exposing him to the laughter surrounding him. Strapped to a chair, a target of their hate, Gavin could only sob as punches and kicks rained down. "EW, you homo!" another boy yelled, delivering a kick that sent Gavin tumbling to the ground. Bound and completely defenseless, Gavin could only cry. The laughter grew louder, mockery consuming the night. As his world blurred and collapsed under the weight of pain, Gavin's consciousness began to fade. The laughter eventually dissipated, replaced by an empty silence as the boys left, leaving Gavin's broken spirit abandoned. The next day, John was rocked by a news report that sent a jolt of dread through his body. Police report a tragic incident under the old bridge, where a 16-year-old boy was found deceased. The anchor said, her voice grave. The image on screen was haunting. It was Gavin. Shock, guilt, and a sudden sense of horror washed over John. This wasn't how he envisioned his life. He had committed a heinous act under the guise of a prank, and now that boy, a boy who had simply wanted friendship, was gone. Days turned to weeks, and the weight of his actions lingered like an unresolved nightmare. The laughter that echoed around the bridge replayed in his mind, transforming into anguished cries. He lost friends and earned disdainful glares. Haunted by Gavin's memory, John found himself wandering to the old bridge one quiet evening, something about it calling him back. He stood at the edge, the weight of his guilt crashing over him like the tide below. It was there, staring into the deep currents, he realized. He had not simply wronged someone. He had snuffed out a life, discarded all of Gavin's hopes, dreams, and unspoken fears with a flick of a finger. With tears streaming down his cheeks, John finally understood the depth of his betrayal. The boy he had bullied, the one who dared to share his truth, was gone forever. This realization would haunt him for the rest of his life. Standing under the bridge, John vowed to change. He would no longer let hatred dictate his actions. Gavin would not be forgotten. John would spend the rest of his days seeking atonement. Not just for Gavin, but for the boys who felt just like him. This was not the end of a story. It was the beginning of a journey for healing, understanding, and remembrance. As John turned away from the bridge, he whispered into the wind, "I'm sorry, Gavin. I'm so incredibly sorry."